Let's go! Engine bunch, we gotta go, Elvis, come on!
What can be said? What can be said? Yes, y'all, we are back, Nerdy Girl Reviews, and we are reviewing Wrath of Men. Now available on video on demand, I believe on Apple Plus as well, and I believe still in theaters. So I peeped it this weekend, so stay tuned for that review. And again, if you would like to see all my videos and uploads, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. I'm available here on YouTube, and I'm also available on sofritoforyoursoul.com. Stay tuned. First and foremost, I always want to make it a point to match my outfit with, or my makeup, to the film. And since it's very serious and very black, overall uniform look, criminal activity.
She knows how I like my eggs.
There you go. Second, I want to point out,
this is a $2 million pickup from back in the U.S.
You hear that voice?
Dave will stay in the truck. H, you come in with me. You get to meet the lovely ladies who work the tills. Just be wary of Hot Betty.
If you're lucky, she'll only take your fucking arm off.
Nonetheless, if the voice sounds familiar, that is the actor Holt McCallany, who plays Bullet. And if he sounds familiar, you Mindhunter fans know what I'm hinting at, okay? Oh my god, I don't know, something about his voice, I don't know what it is, but it just always draws me. He played FBI special agent Bill Tench in the series Mindhunter from 2017 to 2019, and please let there be a season 3, which is rumored, but since we've gone into pandemic, I don't know, I feel like it's been pushed back. But nonetheless, even though some have said it's canceled, but I refuse to believe, I love his voice. He, for me, just always stands out based on his appeal, his aesthetic, and his voice. Every time I see him, all that comes to mind is like something straight out of like Dragnet, you know, those cop series and films from the 70s and 80s. He reads as FBI agent, he reads as cop, so it's you know, it makes sense that he would be here in some form of law enforcement, right? He's not the law. So let's get into the synopsis, right? Quick synopsis. Wrath of Man is a 2021 action thriller heist film directed by Guy Ritchie from a script he co-wrote with Ivan Atkinson and Marn Davies, and is loosely based on the 2004 French film Cash Truck. It's Ritchie's fourth directorial collaboration with lead actor Jason Statham. Sorry if I'm butchering it. And first since Revolver, Statham stars as H, a new cash truck driver in Los Angeles, whose thwarting of a robbery leads to his skill set with guns and mysterious past being questioned, with a number of great actors, which again I want to make mention, this is a multi-ethnic cast. We have African Americans, we have Latinos, we have Laz Alonso, who is Cuban American, and we have Raul Castillo, who's Mexican American. Again, much like I mentioned in my other reviews for Fear Street, they just are. You know, there's really no mention of their ethnicity, but they're just part of the story, which is great. A great sign of where we're going when it comes to storytelling and filmmaking. Just make us a part of the story. You know, you can be these things if it's important to the story, but their ethnicities weren't important to this story. So I love that aspect. And there's always this one sinister, like, theme song that keeps playing throughout the entire film. So basically, Jason's character, again, H, is some big. We're under the suspicion he's in something. He's a big mafioso of some sort. He is like the head of an organization. Has been doing dubious things for decades, I'm sure. Has the respect of the streets, and he himself lives very well off of the crimes they pull off. And I believe one of the many is hitting up cash trucks, but that isn't anything new. So other petty thieves kind of get into it, and that's more or less the start in the first few minutes of the film.
Dave, you just worry about putting your asshole back in your asshole. You leave this to me.
That's only a line that Jason can like deliver and do it with a straight face, and it's still like be kick-ass and to the point. Honestly, I think he's the sole purpose of what set this genre back. A resurgence is what they've said, that Jason is a resurgence
I said throw the money in the
that
fucking flatbed.
particular
Try to get
genre.
clever again, and old boy is getting a face full of shit.
Just do what he says. These guys are fucking
And you
serious.
can tell, like right here, you already know that he could really care less. This is not a man to be played with. He is not your average.
Sorry, pal.
Not your average. There you go. I don't want to spoil it, but you can tell that something's gonna go down, right? He's not your average Joe Schmo. And then again, he's highly skilled, so he doesn't even flinch. Most of these scenes are pretty barbaric, but he doesn't flinch. And so how did people think that he would just be the average driver? I have no idea. But then they slowly started realizing, like, is this man a psychopath? We're not sure. Because he just has like no remorse, no hesitation, no stress. It's just pop, 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 pop. Anyway, so it's very much that film. And I want to say, so he's bloodthirsty not just because there's a purpose. Again, spoiler alerts, if you haven't seen it, there will be a number of things that I will be saying. So if you don't want to know anything, just watch the movie, then maybe come back for my review. But it's been out since May, so give me a break. So he's in some form of organized crime. He's seeing his kid, his only son, is in town. There's a job that needs to be hit. One of these cash trucks need to be hit, but it was like his day off. And plus, he's the boss, so he has people doing that for him. But it just so happens that the person that was supposed to got in the middle of a car accident with a drunk driver, and then he was caught up with, a police report. And so all they needed from the boss was to know which direction the cash truck was going to head, left or right. So in doing so, he was only 10 minutes away from where they were supposed to do this big hit. But he parks on the wrong street. It just tells you being at the spot at the wrong time. And he goes and gets some burritos, but he's just there to monitor the truck without knowing that there was already somebody else that was going to hit up the truck. And unfortunately, now his son was caught in the crossfire. He was an innocent victim. He wasn't involved in any means. He was just left in the SUV that his father was driving at the time, who he thought he had left parked safely. And because it's in the middle of all this, they don't want any witnesses. And they notice that the kid is just there. So this band of thieves that are hitting up this cash truck has loads of millions of dollars, they unload the two guardsmen of that particular truck. And then all hell breaks loose because one decides to be, a hero, vigilante, and someone loses it. And both guardsmen die, Both drivers die. And then here we have Jason's kid, H's kid, that was left on the ground. He witnessed the wedding, the murder. And then, so to not leave any witnesses, he unfortunately is killed. And then, as Jason's character is trying to save his kid, he also is gunned down, but by some grace of God, he is not killed. He is badly wounded. And 3 weeks later, he wakes up and realizes that his son had been gunned down. So here's where the incentive and motive kicks in for Jason's character, and he tries literally everything. He needs to know who was the culprit, who was responsible, because he still remembers an inkling, but he doesn't have a clear face, because remember, he was gunned down, but he does know more or less who gunned down his kid. So there's that. Now, he tries everything. He tries all types of intimidation from other organizations, and even somebody who works for him says, like, maybe we should try another approach, because if we keep going at this, we might end up losing our own lives. You need some time off. Maybe go back to London. Try to, find yourself. Take some time off. And he agrees, but come on, this is Jason. Like, how many other action-packed films? He's not one to just walk away from anything. And what he decides to do is that he was going to get a job concerning that particular company, Cash Truck, because they always say the thieves or the criminal always comes back to the scene of the crime. He figured in his head that whoever was responsible for his son's death would eventually come back and will, out of pure greed, would want to do maybe perhaps the same crime, commit the same crime. And lo and behold, he gets a job at this particular spot with this particular Cash Truck company, Fortico. And we are introduced to a number of characters. There's always one that's the antagonist. They don't like the new guy. They think that he thinks of himself as high and mighty, plus that British accent that he brings with him. Is like he thinks of himself as hoity-toity. They put him through all types of phases, I guess, to see if he really had the chops, and he does. Almost to the point where, the first heist that goes terribly wrong, you realize that this is not your average Joe Schmo with that scene that I just showed. The man is a sharpshooter. He knows exactly where to hit. He knows, and he shoots to kill. So they quickly realize it's like, this is not your average person. This is what I will say. The movie is split between 4 parts. It's kind of told like a play, which I appreciate. And kudos to Guy Ritchie for that. So the first part is titled A Dark Spirit, and we get like a background, sense of who this character is and what's his incentive and motive. Scorched Earth, we see, how it's impacted his life and how he's in search of what has happened. Bad Animals Bad is our introduction to the culprits, to the actual, because he goes through a number of people doing the same thing over and over again, the heist, which you gotta say, what's up with this company? Are they constantly getting hit? Like, aren't they losing millions of dollars? And again, because they're not federally protected, perhaps that's why. And not for nothing, there are instances, because there's been so many heist films, I got a lot of like flashbacks to dead presidents. And this is where this ties to Bad Animals Bad, because you are to assume, well, they're criminals. They're the ones that are hitting up these cash trucks because they're delinquents, and they must be the worst of the worst. I give it to Guy Ritchie, because even though they are committing these heinous crimes, he gives them a sense of dignity, which I don't think I have seen. Aside from Dead Presidents, which was honestly a really sad portrayal of veterans in the 60s and 70s, but also lets you know that things haven't really improved since then. So now we have this contemporary story where the same thing happens. The United States, unfortunately, does not care for our veterans. And this is the underlying message thrown in the film. That here we have veterans who sacrificed their life in Afghanistan and are essentially war heroes, but have come back to literally nothing. There is no pension, there's no sense of making a living, and so they've had to settle for these mediocre jobs, working as security for billionaires, or having to work in a mall for bare minimum wage, not even. And yet they are family men and they have children, and are basically just living off of whatever, but aren't essentially living their lives. So there's that underlying message. But yeah, we have a sense that they're not the mafia. That's also stressed in the film. They're not the mafia. They're not some organized crime. They are soldiers. But nonetheless, they wanted to live okay. They wanted to retire. They wanted the welcoming of heroes that they never really got. So they start doing like small hit-ups with billionaires and whatnot, and then they start really realizing quickly that they're not making much. But when they hit the cash trucks, that's where the real money is. And everything goes at the beginning really smooth sailing. We do see certain characters are a little more arrogant than others, even though they all are soldiers and they are to follow, especially the head commander in charge. But there's always one that goes rogue, and that's our Jan character, played by Scott Eastwood. And tell me he doesn't look exactly like his dad. I mean, like in the beady eyes and everything, and he just looks like an arrogant asshole. Sorry, but he does it really well. Yeah, you see that he's the one that likes to push buttons, and so everybody else more or less falls in line. Nobody here is Peachy Keen or PG, but for the most part, Jan's the one that likes to start up shit. And they all kind of more or less listen to the sergeant, but not this one. So in this segment of the movie, slash play, because it feels like a play, we have a sense of storytelling like Quentin Tarantino would have told Pulp Fiction. We have different sides of the same event, the same exact scene, but from different points of view, from the kid to H's character's point of view to the actual criminals. And you can see that everything seemed like it was going smoothly until that one truck driver lost it, thought that he would be the hero, takes out a gun. And Jen, either he's suffering from some form of PTSD or is just too trigger happy, it sets something off. And that also has to explain, and again, I'm not a therapist, I don't know 100% what most soldiers, especially after a traumatic experience as war, they go through, but it reads in the actor's face in the sense of like the adrenaline kicked in, and he couldn't stop himself. So he hits the two guards, but then also notices that H's son witnessed it, and he can't have witnesses, and so he doesn't even just shoot him once. He went, for lack of a better word, apeshit on him. He sent him several bullets, and then he also got trigger happy with H's character, that again, like I said, if it wasn't for maybe some perhaps some movements, that's the only thing that kind of saved him from not dying and joining his son, unfortunately. So like I said, criminals always come back to the scene of the crime. And here also comes another phrase that is popular in Spanish: uno nunca sabe para quién uno trabaja. You never know who you were working for, actually and genuinely. So of course they come up with another big heist, and this was gonna be a big payout. Like this, after this hit, they weren't gonna even need to do another. They could retire for the rest of their lives. And this falls under the segment of lungs, liver, spleen, and heart. So we see how this big operation, because of the big payout was going to come with a lot more. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but things go awry rather quickly. But again, if you are in the mood for that type of movie watching, I definitely recommend it. Okay, so spoiler here, I was not expecting for Holt's character Bullet to be the inside guy. That got me. I was like, what? Because he already has that, like, he's so charming. But again, that just tells you too, like, criminals are charming. But he's so charming. He seems so trustworthy. And oh my God, all the way to the very end. And it was like, oh man, it was you. And he's, again, maybe because they're all trained assassins essentially because of their war training, but because of that money and all of that, so that the character that does kill H's son meets his demise. But I won't spoil that for you, like how he meets it, but it's crazy. So this is an action-packed film. This is so dope. It was dope to see also. I've mentioned Raul Castillo's work before, and Homeboy is really going up in terms of exposure and acting ability. And again, I'm always one to encourage Latinidad, Latinos in the industry. We need more Latino representation. And also Las Alonso, I think he did a phenomenal job too. Very alpha male in this film. And I recommend also his work as well. But again, stay tuned. I will be back for another review. I enjoyed a number of series on HBO Max. I think one is called Hacks, which I'll be reviewing with my next upload. And a few other films, like I mentioned, shorts and films that haven't gotten the attention that it deserves. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, XOXO, nerdy girl. Let's play this out.
Did you like poo-poo?
You gotta watch to see how that is so incredibly hysterical. But again, you gotta watch this film. I highly recommend it. Action-packed, great entertainment, popcorn worthy. So yes, until next time, XOXO, nerdy girl.